Hello, welcome. This is a video regarding glowing theme from Theme Forest. There seems to be some confusion or lack of guide regarding how to set up the mega menus. This is a problem I've faced myself, so I thought I'd share some of my knowledge on how to get the mega menus to work and pitfalls and that you need to look out for. So after installing the demo version of Glowing Themes, we seem to have no kind of mega menu. Now what you need to do is obviously go into dashboard and go down to the mega menu. Now this is where you create the mega menus. So let's create a new one. And we'll call this one mega 5 column. Now if you haven't already turned WPbakery builder in, this is one of the areas that you need to be able to switch this on. So if I just click publish to save that, what you need to do is go to WPbakery on the page builder and go to role manager. Now you might only have posts turned on, but what you need to do is turn on this G5 core content for content blocks, turn it on for products if you want to make changes to that, but the most important one is this X menu mega. Once you turn this feature on, once you go to the mega menu, you would then get to see the WPbakery builder function here. So to create a new menu, we'll go into that and turn that on. What we obviously need to do is create a row. So if you do a search for a row, now depending on how many rows you want in your mega menu, just like the demo, we'll need to turn this into 5, like so. So these are the 5 columns that you'll see in the mega menu on the drop down. So obviously we want to create a heading, and these are our heading options. So what we need to do is just make sure that we've selected the header style that we want, add in the title, and then obviously select your tag. That's all you need to do on this section. You can leave it to default for the family that you have set up, and click save changes, and again kind of copy and move these over like so. So then we can go back in and make changes. And give ourselves titles. Now what we also need to do is select the menu items that we want to add. So if we click this button here, and what we're looking for is lists. So this is where we can add in multiple lists and select our styling options. This little drop down here. So this is where we can add in our lists and select the URL that we want to link to. Then we can just duplicate this, give our list item a title and the URL. Again, we can just build up these lists. So these are all the link items in the first column, and once we're happy with that, we can copy and move this over and then edit the list and carry on building our list up. Again, we can just go in and so forth. So as you can see, building the list is quite simple. Now for the final column, we've got a image. So what we need to do is select this column here and first add our image. So to do that, we need to go to here under design options and add a background image. Let's go, for instance, let's add that one. Obviously, if you want a square image, you need to upload the image at that size, and we just need to make sure that's cover. And what we want to do is add a space. I'll come back and make these changes. And we also want to add a button. Again, I'll come back and make these changes. And we need to add an header. So we want to keep this header style, add in our title, put in a new collection and save. And then what we want to do is just add a bit of space below. So what I need to do is move that up, duplicate that and drop that down. Now that's the basics that we need to set this up. And what I need to do is just tweak the spacing and the positioning of the image to make it fit correctly within the column. So if we go back to the image for starters, we've got our go to design options. We've got our image. We may need to move this around or select a different image to suit, but what we can do is add in 15 pixels around the image to give it a bit of margin for the text to sit in, and we can give it a padding add in the space required, because 60 pixels is a little bit too much, so we can add in 35 pixels there, and we can add in 85 there. Go to button, and what we want to do is add in shop sale, and we want to keep it classic and square. We can go with light or dark, or select your option here. We want to keep this left aligned. There are other options that we can select for size. And select our heading. Now our heading, we've got title and new collection. We're using a H2. We want to limit the width, and this extra bit of class is very useful, so it's a subheading. And in our typography, we can keep the fonts the same, but we can override the size of the font. For desktop, the line height we can override, and we want the text to be dark. We can scroll down and make that 15, and again we can make the text light or dark depending on our background image. So that is a 5-column drop down mega menu with an image to the right hand side and obviously all the lists. So I can just click update, and that mega menu is now created. Now you can create as many mega menus as you want. I'll show you another technique which shows two columns with images that sit in the middle of the screen rather than spanning right across. So what we need to do now is go to menus. Now if you don't see this mega menu here, you've just created it and you've had this window open, either just refresh, or if you still don't see this mega menu, if you go up to the top right hand corner to screen options and make sure that this button is clicked so that it is on. Once you've happy and you can see your mega menu, what you need to do is just select your 5-column grid, drag this into the position that you want, and I'll just remove all these others so you can see the full effect. Now this will not work straight away and I'll show you why. So once we've saved, and just make sure that the main menu clicked is switched on for this particular theme, and if I go up and visit the site, as you can see it's scrunched it all up, which is something we don't want. So what you need to do is go back to your menu, and we've got this little highlight button here. Now there are different settings you can use and different options that you can put in, like icons and so forth, but what we want to do is go to sub menu, and at the moment it's set to auto. There's container, full width, or your custom width. So if you put in 400 pixels, that will give the width of 400 pixels, but in this case this is a full width. You have other options here where we can make sure it's the left of the parent, but I'll just set it for default as it's a full width menu and click save. I just want to double check, save menu. Go back to your front page and do a refresh, and as you can see here, the product span across the full width of the page. Now you can go back in and change the options for each one of these and move some of the padding around for this one. The other menu item I created was this one, and drop that into there. I'll just remove that one and do a save and refresh the home page. So as you can see, changing some of the layout and some of the spec, you get your full layout across the page. Now this might be great for some instances, but it gets a bit more complicated when you just want 2 images and a bit of text and a button. There's 2 ways to do it. You can either create 2 menu items like this that sit side by side in the middle, or I'll show you a different way of doing it now. So we need to go back to mega menu, create a new menu, new 2-column, go to edit, add a row, make the row full width. Now I've found when doing 2 columns it spreads across the page, and I'll do an example of this. So we're going to add in I'll make it 4 columns so we can show both ways of adding images and text. So I can add this as a single image. Select from the media library, add in our image. We'll keep it as thumbnail for the moment, but you can change the size. We'll copy that over to there, and we can add in a text block. This is where we can add in a text block and a button. So we'll keep this all as it is for the moment. And click save. Oh, for the button to display, I just need to put in a URL and save. And then what we can do is replicate this across and publish. So if I go back to menus, and add in new 2 column, I just remove that one and make sure that that is set to a full width, and save and refresh. Now, as you can see, this is the column that we set up. That was a 5 column, and a 2 column spans right across the page. The text button's too big, and we've got this really wide space, and that's because it's working on the fact that this is a full width 12 columns, and what we want to do is fool it into thinking that it's 2/3 of the page. So this text and this images scrunch up a little bit closer together. So we've got quite a bit of work that we need to do here. So if I just go back into this menu, what I'm going to do is just create a new one and move stuff around. So we need to create a row and add in another row in a row. That way we can add in our 4 columns. So what I can do is create our 4 columns, drag in our content, and it just doesn't seem to want to drop into that section there. If you come across this problem, just create a new item. That way we can drag into that spot and then just remove what we don't want. Drag these buttons over. Now let's make these buttons smaller. And let's go for an outline. Now we can delete this one. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky, because what you need to do is tell the outer column that we're going to use 2/3. And as you can see here, it positions itself to the left. So we just need to tell it, if we'll just go back, if you click this button here, go up to responsive, and make that 2 columns. I'll just show you again. Go up to responsive options, don't need to touch anything else, just there, select 2 columns, 1/6, and save. Now this will scrunch all this up into a smaller area in the middle of the page, and click update. Now to show you the effect of this, because this is one method of doing this, I'll just refresh. This pulls it in all a little bit closer. Now you can set the image to be positioned on the right hand side, which will help to narrow this gap. So you can say align to the right. So we can make sure that all these images are set to the right, and update, and do a refresh. Now you're going to have natural padding here with the columns within WPbakery, but it gives you an idea how you can produce a nice tidy 2-column that sits within the middle of the page. You can override the width of this within the columns under menus. So under the menus, when you're back here, you can select, full width or container. I'll just show you what container would do for an image like this. So obviously keeping it full width would help for the layout to position itself properly within the page, and we've got this kind of overlap going on now. So always try and keep it full width where possible, unless you are working with custom sizes. And that's a custom 500 pixels, but obviously I'm working on a larger screen, so this is where the problem lies. So again, the easiest option is always to go full width, keeping in line with how the theme looks. And there you go. Now one option is a slightly different way of doing this exact same thing. It all depends on the text that you're going to be using, and I'll show you another method which is using some other inbuilt blocks already designed and introduced by the G5 theme developers. Now we can add in a new menu using headers. Again, go into a block, create a row. We'll just save that for the moment. Again, this is using the same method as we did before. So what I want to do is add in a new row inside a row so that we can adjust how many columns we want to use. Go to custom settings for this row and make it 2/3, and then position so it sits center within the full width. Now we've got our 2 rows. What we could do, add in an image box, which gives us a few options that we can use on how we want it to lay out within each column. So first we want to select how we want the image and the text to look. My preference is always this one, and we can select an image from the library. Now if I just select a product, say something like that, and set this image. We can choose whether we want it a circle in line with some of the other boxes that are on the website in the demo theme. But for this purpose of this, we'll just select square, no border. We'll go with large, but we can set our image size. We've got the title, and we can add in our description. Click onto text mode and add in our description that we want. If you want the link, and we want to show buttons, so click here. And then we've got options above for title. So we can add in maybe 20 pixels, select that to the left. If you've got particular fonts and font sizes, we can add those too. And if you're using a primary color, we can do that. Description options, again we can add in our text and make sure that that sits left aligned and dark, and the button we can select as outline, squared. We'll have a small button because it's in the menu, and we can OK that. If I duplicate that across, if it'll let me, again I'll just add in so again we can see what this would look like if I just change that image. And update. If I go to menu, and let's remove this one so you can see the two. Remove, mega menu, refresh. There we go, using header. We can drop that into there and remove this option and click save. Refresh the home page. So the one I created earlier was this one, and now what we've got is this one, which is very similar, using the exact same method. And as you can see here, this is aligned to the left, but that is now showing full width across the page. Just to double check that this is showing how it should be, so full width, menu position, and full width, so that's default. Save. And you can just change these as well and refresh. So this is where it sits nicely within two columns. If you want to create more columns, you can do so but it brings this in obviously a bit tighter. So what you can do is when it's above 2 columns, if you're going back to 3 columns, you can just set this back to custom, change this back to inherit, update. So there's your 2 column and there's your 3 column. I hope that helps setting this up. I know it doesn't look correct with the edges, but I'm using an odd size screen